everyone I met there that I was colleagues with Sally, and formidable Harvard people would always smile and remember her and feel grateful for all the ways we feel grateful for her incomparable gifts and absolute talent for living. The man moth. Here above, cracks in the buildings are filled with battered moonlight. The whole shadow of man is only as big as his hat. It lies at his feet like a circle for a doll to stand on, and he makes an inverted pin, the point magnetized to the moon. He does not see the moon. He observes only her vast properties, feeling the queer light on his hands, neither warm nor cold, of a temperature impossible to record in thermometers. But when the man moth pays his rare, although occasional visits to the surface, the moon looks rather different to him. He emerges from an opening under the edge of one of the sidewalks and nervously begins to scale the faces of buildings. He thinks the moon is a small hole at the top of the sky, proving the sky quite useless for protection. He trembles, but must investigate as high as he can climb. Up the facades, his shadow dragging like a photographer's cloth behind him, he climbs fearfully, thinking that this time he will manage to push his small head through that round, clean opening and be forced through, as from a tube, in black scrolls on the light. Man, standing below him, has no such illusions. But what the man moth fears most, he must do, although he fails, of course, and falls back, scared, but quite unhurt. Then he returns to the pale subways of cement he calls home. He flits, he flutters, and cannot get aboard the silent trains fast enough to suit him. The doors close swiftly. The man moth always seats himself facing the wrong way, and the train starts at once at its full, terrible speed, without a shift in gears or a gradation of any sort. He cannot tell the rate at which he travels backward. Each night, he must be carried through artificial tunnels and dream recurrent dreams, just as the ties recur beneath his train. These underlie his rushing brain. He does not dare look out the window, for the third rail, the unbroken draft of poison, runs there beside him. He regards it as a disease he has inherited the susceptibility to. He has to keep his hands in his pockets, as others must wear mufflers. If you catch him, hold up a flashlight to his eye. It's all dark pupil, an entire night itself, whose haired horizon tightens as he stares back and closes up the eye. Then, from the lids, one tear, his only possession, like the bee's sting, slips. Slyly he palms it, And if you're not paying attention, he'll swallow it. However, if you watch, he'll hand it over, cool as from underground springs and pure enough to drink. Thank you. I'll miss Sally, and I'll always feel so grateful to have been her colleague.
Hello, my name is Susan Scarrow. This is my colleague, Carla Sharp. We got to know Sally while we were all serving as Associate Deans in the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences, along with Associate Dean Todd Romero, with Sally holding the illustrious title of Associate Dean for Student and Faculty Success. As you have heard, she enthusiastically embraced the mission of this job title. One of her initiatives involved recognizing and supporting high-achieving undergraduates across the college, helping them find and attain nationally competitive opportunities which would enable them to realize their dreams. Two students she worked with recently sent these reflections on what Dr. Connolly's mentoring meant to them.
Milad Saeed was a UH psychology major and 2025 graduate who was awarded a prestigious Marshall Scholarship from the British government. We saw Sally spend hours and hours setting up appointments with the Marshall people and then finding students who would be appropriate to apply for this, and then holding students' hands through this application process until we had, for the first time in UH history, success in placing students in these scholarships. This is from Milad, who is now studying a Master's of Public Health at the University of Edinburgh, and he writes, Dr. Sally Connolly holds a special place in my heart. I first knew her as the professor with a posh British accent, a rarity in Houston, Texas. I knew her for her wit and her academic prowess. I knew she was a titan in her field. However, of all places, it was at class graduation where we were both members of the Platform Party. I'm sorry, that I really got to know her. It was here that I first shared my intention of studying at the UK graduate school, on her side of the pond. Rather than dismissing or belittling this ambition, as some have done, Dr. Connolly fostered it and graciously mentored me through this process. Looking back, writing these words in Edinburgh, Scotland, I realized Dr. Connolly did not have to make time to help us. She chose to. And now I'm living my dream, which is an immense privilege. In this way, I hope to emulate Dr. Connolly's remarkable legacy in my life, to support others to achieve their dreams, to bring humility and honor and humor to every conversation. I am immensely grateful to call Dr. Sally Connolly a mentor, and I'm crying because I will miss Sally an awful lot. Your mom was very special, Seamus and Elizabeth.
And now we hear from Kalina Holman. She was a UH English major and member of the Honors College, who also graduated in 2025. She was awarded a highly competitive Gates Cambridge Scholarship to support her studies for an MPhil in Classics at Cambridge University in the UK. And like Milad, she also is now in the UK and could not be here, but sent words instead. And she writes, I first met Dr. Connolly in my sophomore year, where we discussed extracurricular pathways to success in graduate study. She provided invaluable mentorship to me throughout my undergraduate career, but particularly as I was applying for graduate fellowships to study in the UK. Well aware of how taxing and nerve-wracking the interview process can be, especially for a first-generation grad student, she went above and beyond to make sure I was comfortable, confident, and prepared. Earlier this year, I flew to Seattle to interview for the Gates Cambridge Scholarship. Dr. Connolly, who happened to be in Seattle for an unrelated matter, offered to meet with me both before and after my interview to discuss tips, assuage my concerns, and celebrate my success regardless of the interview's outcome. These little moments were invaluable in my interview experience, and I sincerely believe they were a contributing factor to my receiving the Gates Cambridge. Although Dr. Connolly was responsible for many great things at UH, it is moments like these that I will remember her by. Her passing is a tremendous loss, both to the university as a whole, but also its students. And indeed, Kalina's words speak for all of us. Sally, we miss you.
My name is Roberto Tejada. And though I joined the English department over a decade ago, I can still hear the spirited warmth of Sally's words of welcome in a written note to me well before we formally met. And once in Houston, I joined the league of those who cherished the conviviality of her person, the quickness of her irreverent humor, and the passion she shared for poets dear to her heart and to mine as well. Among them was the Kansas-born, San Francisco-based poet Ronald Johnson, with whose work Sally engaged in a chapter from the book she completed this summer on the impact of the AIDS epidemic on American poetry. I'll read a section from Johnson's monumental non-linear poem Arc, composed of 99 foundations, spires, and ramparts. The poem, Arc 79, Arches 13, the hymnals, unites heaven and earth, word and action, the bygone and the here and after, majestic architectures and the little habitat. An excellent place, I think, to honor Sally's radiance, to celebrate the enduring delight of her heart and mind and imagination. Descend endless realms, no broader numbered measure than man's mind. Chariot beyond compare, mid-silver shield, and rolled on wheels of amber, stripped by the wind on every side, clustering spheres upheld, far reason's ear. Face-to-face sun, bare ashes, so blind an alley assembled star by star, oh, for million pinion tongues set apart as cornerstone over and around us, where apes swing angels 3 in 1 and 1 in 3 high skyward, wide words and signs the arches rang, upward, still in threshold. Vast order ranged, rise up, interrupted, interpreted, crowned flame in borrowed time. One teeming net of blood to terminate illusion, so snow on snow stare steeps of light, dominion mirror clear. Sewn radiant hem, who robe a luster within awe, out every corner sing o'er multitudinous abyss is and is to be, dare tell all speeches denies. Wrecks endless of storied time, old world made new as footsteps ride the wave. Ply us, sing winged seraph, Alpha and Omega, cherubim treed sleepless an eye, kindling a new line lifted of sea, perfect in messenger, table spread, ember, hid vow view font of life, pearl gates of pearl, gates of horn, swimming topaz, entwined all hallowed, angelus, amethyst, in the land of the glorious body sing, unseen yet ever near, sung in unison, stand revealed full man, exalt, adorn from chaos' swarm, thirsting beyond bound circle, soars up paradise.
Hi, I'm Jen Wingard. I am in the English department. Sally and I started here at UH the same year. We and Paul Butler had a nice bunch of drinks and met each other right before the semester started in the Montrose, and Sally and I became fast friends, and we became very close friends over the course of our time together. So I want to begin with the lyrics from the song Wreck by Neko Case. According to Neko, the song, it's on her new album, and the whole album is about people in her life whom she loved, friends, bandmates, who over the past 7 years passed away. And I've been listening to it a lot, and it now makes me think of Sally, especially these lyrics. I'm an eruption, a wreck of possibilities, a volatility of stars. My clothes can't hold together. And I know I can't burn this bright forever. You see, Sally Connolly has left a hole in the universe, and I am not sure it's ever going to be filled. She was fabulous and funny, but most of all, she was present. If you were talking with Sally, she was completely engaged and engaging. She had laser-sharp focus, which did not only apply to her work, but also her friendships. When Sally was with you, she was with you, which is a rare thing. It is also rare that Sally was always wholly Sally. In a profession and a world where we all strive to show versions of ourselves in certain circumstances, Sally walked through the world as herself in all places. Now, this is not to say that she was, as the kids say, messy. To the contrary, Sally was well-mannered and put together and hilarious and audacious and smug and stubborn and wickedly smart and massively caring toward those she believed in. That was Sally. In all her rich complexity, was presented to the world with a red lip, smelling like Chanel, clad in Louboutin and Westwood. In fact, one of my favorite stories about Sally is the first time she took Seamus and Elizabeth to Disney World when you were toddlers. She wore her red lip, she wore her black heels, and a frock of some sort, not the typical Disney World attire. That, combined with her jet black hair and her pale skin, prompted a passing child to ask, "Is that the Wicked Witch?" The comment pleased Sally to no end, and all she told could envision her in the most unlikely dress at an American theme park built on Florida swampland. But knowing Sally, it made sense. Sally was also a world traveler who lived in a kibbutz outside of Israel, fought fires in Australia, and would travel across Asia in hopes of an excellent meal or a beautiful vista. But, or I should say and, Sally loved Disney World and Las Vegas. There was something about the excess of American tourism that fascinated her. One of my favorite pieces of her writing is her introductory chapter in Ranches of Isolation, wherein she discusses ranch dressing and its unique Americanness. So much so that she notes that everywhere else, the mayonnaise-based concoction is called American dressing. Her ability to be fascinated by and research and write about something as banal as ranch dressing is the kind of curiosity and cleverness we hope for in our students, we wish to see in our colleagues, and we want for ourselves. How lucky were we all to know her. And I am so lucky that I got to be her friend for almost 20 years. I had hoped for at least a good 20 more. So I will end once again with Neko Case's words. Please come back soon, sooner than you want to. It's the only thing in this whole world that would please me.
Hi, I'm Margot Bacchus. I'm in the English department. I overlapped with Sally in an unusual way in that I started out in graduate school writing about elegy and rapidly moved on, started writing about prose and never looked back at poetry a single bit. Today, when I'm going to read you a poem, I'm wishing that I had taken a little more interest in the genre. But I started working on Joyce and especially Ulysses, and that's what I do. And Sally started out working on Joyce and especially Ulysses, and then moved on to elegy. And so we've always been aware of that sort of ships passing in the night effect. And it's been great reading her work recently. On the elegy, we had started talking about our shared interest in elegy just recently again, and I'm really sorry about foreseen conversations that we're not going to have now. But I am reading In Memory of W.B. Yeats by W.H. Auden, and Yeats is one of the few poets that I actually would say I know some things about. I don't know much about Auden at all. I'm not proud of that fact. And I got a little coaching on this from my wife, who is an excellent reader of poetry, so hopefully I won't absolutely kill it. I picked this poem because in Ranches of Isolation, she sort of launched her reflections based largely on this poem, which she said she read nearly every day of her adult life. So it seemed like a good choice for honoring her. And I'm grateful for what she gave me just in reading it over and trying to make it something that I have a sense of the meaning of and can convey. He disappeared in the dead of winter. The brooks were frozen, the airports almost deserted, the snow disfigured the public statues, the mercury sank in the mouth of the dying day. What instruments we have agree. The day of his death was a dark, cold day. Far from his illness, the wolves ran on through the evergreen forests. The peasant river was untempted by the fashionable keys, by morning tongues. The death of the poet was kept from his poems. But for him, it was his last afternoon as himself, an afternoon of nurses and rumors. The provinces of his body revolted, the squares of his mind were empty. Silence invaded the suburbs. The current of his feeling failed. He became his admirers. Now he is scattered among 100 cities and wholly given over to unfamiliar affections to find his happiness in another kind of wood and be punished under a foreign code of conscience. The words of a dead man are modified in the guts of the living. But in the importance and noise of tomorrow, when the brokers are roaring like beasts on the floor of the bourse, and the poor have the sufferings to which they are fairly accustomed, and each in the cell of himself is almost convinced of his freedom, a few thousand will think of this day as one thinks of a day when one did something slightly unusual. What instruments we have agree the day of his death was a dark, cold day. You were silly like us. Your gift survived it all. The parish of rich women, physical decay, yourself. Mad Ireland hurt you into poetry. Now Ireland has her madness and her weather still. For poetry makes nothing happen. It survives in the valley of its making where executives would never want to tamper, flows on south from ranches of isolation and the busy griefs, raw towns that we believe and die in. It survives a way of happening, a mouth. Earth, receive an honored guest. William Yeats is laid to rest. Let the Irish vessel lie, emptied of its poetry. In the nightmare of the dark, all the dogs of Europe bark, and the living nations wait, each sequestered in its hate. Intellectual disgrace stares from every human face, and the seas of pity lie locked and frozen in each eye. Follow, poet, follow right to the bottom of the night with your unconstraining voice. Still, persuade us to rejoice. With the farming of a verse, make a vineyard of the curse. Sing of human unsuccess in a rapture of distress. In the deserts of the heart, let the healing fountains start in the prison of his days. Teach the free man how to praise.
Hi, my name is Sarah Ehlers, and I had the privilege of working closely with Sally as her colleague in the English department. And I feel lucky to have shared Sally's intellectual investments in modern poetry because it means that I got to spend a lot of time with her. I saw firsthand the commitment and care that she showed her graduate students in spaces ranging from graduate committee meetings to dissertation defenses to celebratory lunches. I learned a great deal from her about what it means to be a good steward of our graduate programs and to mentor with rigor and joy. And I was also the beneficiary of her mentorship as a junior faculty person. For these and so many more reasons, I'm honored to share with you the following words from former UH PhD student Theodora Zielokowski, a novelist, poet, and professor of English at the University of Nebraska-Kearney. Dr. Sally Connolly was a highly accomplished scholar and relentless supporter of her students, who not only exemplified all the qualities that mark a brilliant critic and mentor, but also had an outstanding sense of humor, a profound respect for other people, and was at her very core a remarkably good person. Her loss is as impossible to comprehend as it is to articulate. I first met Dr. Connolly in the fall of 2017 when I took Introduction to Doctoral Studies, a course that would inspire my own pursuit of an academic career. Later, I would take Dr. Connolly's History of Poetics, participate with her in an independent study on body poetics, and ultimately ask her to serve as my comprehensive exam chair as well as on my dissertation committee. I prepared for my comprehensive exams during the pandemic when, like everyone else, I was isolated. During this time, Dr. Connolly and I talked regularly by phone about the books I was reading and the conclusions I was drawing, and these conversations were a lifeline for me. I owe my field of study, body poetics, and the Gothic and poetry by women to Dr. Connolly, who introduced me to writers like the poet Tori Dent, whose impact on my creative work has been continually significant. During the last year of my studies, Dr. Connolly helped prepare me for the academic job market. It is no stretch to say that working with Dr. Connolly changed and shaped the trajectory of my career. Without her mentorship, I would have been far less prepared, not to mention less confident when I entered the academic job market. But this catalog of Dr. Connolly's influence is by no means unique to me. I know I am just one of countless students who were strongly swayed by her wisdom and care. Now, as a faculty member at a higher education institution myself, I recognize how challenging it can be to balance mentoring on top of one's own scholarly ambitions and personal life. Dr. Connolly made this balance look easy as she demonstrated continually how much she regarded us not just as graduate students, but as future academics whose own ideas, ambitions, and strengths were worthy of pursuit. The last time I saw Dr. Connolly was over a celebratory dinner in the spring of 2022. I had just earned my PhD at the University of Houston and was preparing to set off to Kearney, Nebraska to begin my own academic appointment there. At the end of the dinner, Dr. Connolly ordered champagne, and when the waitress brought our wine glasses, Dr. Connolly asked the waitress to please put the wine glasses back. "Aren't there champagne glasses?" she asked. I wish I could say that like Sally. Shooting me a look like the idea of toasting champagne in wine glasses was the most bizarre concept she could ever think of. One of the countless things Dr. Connolly knew how to do extremely well was celebrate. And there was to be no toasting until the table was provided with proper champagne glasses. Lately, I keep rereading W.H. Auden In Memory of W.B. Yeats, and the lines Dr. Connolly herself was intrigued with. For poetry makes nothing happen. It survives in the valley of its making, where executives would never want to tamper, flows on south from ranches of isolation and the busy griefs, raw towns that we believe and die in. It survives, a way of happening, a mouth. For so many of us, Dr. Sally Connolly made so many things happen. Her influence is never ending. I will miss her beyond all words.
My name is Karen Fang, and I'm a colleague of Sally's, and like a number of the speakers today, we had the privilege of being on the subcommittee for her promotion to full professor, which was unanimously recommended just before the terrible news of her passing. And we're so grateful to have had the privilege of re-encountering her work as a scholar and at least letting her know of what she had worked so hard to deserve. But because you've already heard about her as a scholar and as a teacher, I also want to talk a little bit about her as a woman and as a mother. Sally and I were roughly the same age. My two kids are roughly the same age. I am also the mother of some gourmands, so I also loved seeing all the Facebook posts about you two. We also went through some life changes and figured out how to transform one family to another around the same time. And so those are also parts of Sally's life and personality and legacy. So the poem I chose to read today is Seamus Heaney's Oysters, and there's a number of reasons why I chose this, Seamus, obviously. But it might seem like a surprising choice. The poem begins with a glorious scene of eating, of pleasure shared with loved ones, but it does soon grow somewhat somber, acknowledging the many things that are sacrificed and ignored in order for us to revel in pleasure. This contrast between sensory pleasure and the burdens of wisdom, I think, is part of what Sally so admired in Heaney's poetry. In fact, one of her early important essays called Breaking Bread with the Dead is about Heaney's influences from Auden and Yeats in the poem that Margot read, transcend time and space, using language and the power of poetry to reconnect with those we love and admire, to, in effect, have another celebratory meal with people that we can no longer connect with in person. So it's really this more simple idea about poetry, its power to bring people back alive, and the honest, simple pleasure of good food that made me choose this poem. Elizabeth and Seamus, I'm so glad that you have so many spectacular memories with your mom. I know you'll be thinking of her at every meal of every day, and that this is her way of continuing to nourish you every day of your lives. So it's because of you that I chose this poem, Oysters. Our shells clacked on the plates. My tongue was a filling estuary. My palate hung with starlight as I tasted the salty Pleiades. Orion dipped his foot into the water. Alive and violated, they lay on their bed of ice, bivalves, the split bulb and floundering sigh of ocean, millions of them ripped and shucked and scattered. We had driven to that coast through flowers and limestone, and there we were, toasting friendship, laying down a perfect memory in the cool of thatch and crockery. Over the Alps, packed deep in hay and snow, the Romans hauled their oysters south of Rome. I saw damp panniers disgorge the frond-lipped, brine-stung glut of privilege, and was angry that my trust could not repose in the clear light like poetry or freedom leading in from sea. I ate the day deliberately, that its tang might quicken me all into verb, pure verb. Elizabeth and Seamus, may your mother carried you, may she always continue to quicken inside you.
So I'm here just to briefly introduce Sally's husband, Roland James, who arrived to the US on Wednesday night and is surely jet-lagged among all the other emotions of this day. So we're very grateful to have you here, and I want to give you the floor now.
Thank you for allowing me the honor of speaking to you all today. I've watched Sally do this around the world many times, and she sure makes it look easy. So I thought today I'd talk to you a little bit about her life prior to Houston and how she came to be so fascinated with the subject of death and anthology and elegy. And while I did only have the honor of being married to her, we didn't quite make 3 years, didn't quite make 2 years, but we did go back 37 years. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about her life and our time together and what made her the incredible human that she was. Like everything with Sally, it's a preposterous story with a remarkable cast of characters, some of whom I'm delighted to see here today. I first met Sally in 1988. I was in our garden with one of my brothers, and whatever noise we were making, it carried a few gardens down and had caught Sally's attention. Our first conversation went like this. "Oi, who are you?" She was always forthright. "Who are you?" I skeptically replied. I said, "Who are you? I can see you and I'm coming over." I nervously shouted, "I'll call the police," to which a solid voice replied back with, "I am the police." It was only a short exchange, but it's all it took to silence me and to begin a lifetime of Sally outsmarting me and winning every argument at a canter. A few moments later, a girl with long dark hair and glasses appeared, having popped over a wall, through a fence, and finally through a line of Leyland cypress trees at the end of the garden. Mostly she was incredulous. Other children she didn't know about. What had she been missing out on? Who were they? Why wasn't she already acquainted? She had to find out. When I think about her life and how she lived, it's a fitting introduction to her. Sally had to know things. She absorbed facts and information about anything and everything, and she never missed out on the chance to have fun or to experience something new. We knocked around St Albans for the next few years, exploring the town and getting into scrapes. Her first employment at age 14 was in my parents' antique shop, where we would spend Saturdays together, serving customers, packaging things up, me listening to her stories, I suspect somewhat smitten with her even then. Which perhaps explains why I let her tie me to a tree trunk in the garden and drenched with a hosepipe one evening. In a supposedly innocent game taken too far, my parents were not amused, but didn't stop them asking her to babysit my youngest brother one evening. Under her watchful eye, my brother somehow managed to combine substances from a child's chemistry set to make a pretty spectacular explosion and leave a very lurid green stain on the carpet. She was not offered further employment. Her father bought a substantial plot of land in St Albans, adjoining the cathedral. The land had been seized from the abbey during Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries, and the Benedictine monastery that stood there had been destroyed. So on day one, when the building of the dream family home began, perhaps it's no surprise that when the excavator first broke ground, it raised up not just earth, but the remnants of 5 long-since buried bodies. After a few weeks of observing CSI St Albans in action, watching countless skeletons being carefully exhumed, the bones were eventually radiocarbon dated and established to be many hundreds of years old. The plague had ripped through St Albans in 1349, and the family home was built on top of the final resting place of hundreds of unfortunate 14th century souls. Over the course of many years to come, every time it would rain heavily, another collection of bones would rise to the surface. The dog would appear with a thigh bone and a wagging tail, and Sally and her brother Peter would amass quite a collection of bones, of course, flawlessly curated by a fascinated young Sally who prized the skulls, teeth and all, the highest, and would screw them up to her bedroom commissary where they were proudly displayed. Sally's early education was somewhat questionable. A pupil at Lindale and then St Margaret's, there wasn't anything that initially suggested a scholastic future awaited her. Indeed, reading her early school reports verified this, and I quote, "She has a cavalier disregard for accuracy and form. Her spelling is bizarre, and her experience of language is narrow." And my favorite, because this one is actually true, "She wastes too much time organizing the whereabouts of her books and general classroom impedimenta." St Albans Boys' School was founded in 948, and this is where the pedagogical journey really begins. It was 1992 when, after 1,000 years, the school embraced modernity, allowed 16 girls the opportunity to join its senior year, alongside 800 boys aged 12 to 18. With Sally insisting on being one of those 16 trailblazers. Now, whether Sally joined for academic reasons, who can say, but the chance to be a pioneer and a bit of a thorn in the establishment was too much for her to resist. Despite having no interest in sports, 17-year-old Sally campaigned to be allowed to play rugby. Informing those in charge they had no right to exclude her from playing on the grounds of gender. In the end, they relented and let her play with the boys who were several years younger. I'll leave you to imagine what the teenage boys must have made of a 17-year-old Sally joining in their PE lesson. Very quickly, the boys' hockey team became the mixed hockey team. Let's be fair, she had an aptitude for the game and was quickly promoted to captain. However, tomfoolery aside, it was here where poetry first captured her heart, and under the tutelage of John Moll, Sally discovered, among others, you'll be not surprised to hear, W.H. Auden. And in particular his poem, In Memory of W.B. Yeats, which was the starting route for her journey to becoming a poetry critic and someone who specialized in elegy and the study of death. Sally went to university in London, though perhaps it would be more apt to say that Sally went to London and, among other things, went to university. She turned down Cambridge for being too dull. The lure of London was vast, with unlimited restaurants to discover, history, libraries, and essentially pubs and certainly clubs to spend time in. Sally loved to dance. And with her signature red lipstick and flawless dress, she lit up anywhere she went, and she really could dance. London was just her place, and she wanted to experience it all. The biological need to sleep infuriated her. What a waste of precious, precious time when there were 1,000 parties to go to, remarkable people to meet, things to learn and experience and to conquer and to discover. All, of course, while remaining academically perfect and maintaining flawless grades. It was quickly apparent that Sally was no ordinary student, with her abilities nurtured by the esteemed academic John Sutherland, who she remained close with and always in awe of. She seemed to be blossoming exponentially, as were her close friendships and increasing numbers of followers and admirers. When her final year came, she made a decision that, in all truth, nobody else on earth would have considered. She decided to make one of her modules that made up her degree a study of Dante's Inferno. Now, initially it doesn't sound too out there, until you realize that the text was to be studied as it was originally written, that is, in medieval Italian. This would be challenging enough for a contemporary Italian speaker, let alone someone who, and I quote her mother, at best spoke restaurant Italian. How did she do it? Well, in a very Sally way. First, she learnt the entire text in English, line by line, canto by canto. Then she memorized its medieval Italian counterpart, line by line, canto by canto. And from there, it was apparently easy. To say she had the most incredible brain and capacity to focus and recall information would be an understatement. By this point, Sally had bought a modest flat in North Covent Garden, partly funded by work at the Times Literary Supplement and partly by savings from her gap year, where she travelled the world, quite literally, with her mother before stopping off in Australia to live for about 6 months. Travel was so important to Sally. It was something else to research, to learn about, and there were always new places to explore and new things to do and new things to eat. Sally liked to be constantly moving. She travelled on the Trans-Siberian Railway, spent time in Russia, explored Ulaanbaatar, the capital of Mongolia. When she did finally settle in Australia, she worked in a Ralph Lauren store until she was dismissed for shaving her head. It wasn't the image they were after. So instead, Sally made some very good money working down a mine, of all places, and taking on other random jobs, on one occasion spending a week rent-free in a very smart apartment, with her only task to ensure a large collection of spiders, snakes, and all sorts of deadly creatures were routinely fed and watered. Sally's flat became a place associated with lots of excess and good times and fun, and with her beloved Soho just around the corner, there was never not a reason to be out on the town, looking fabulous, with whatever madness taking place, always culminating in a closing act at Sally's flat. It would be easy to put together a collection of highly amusing short stories about the place, which of course Sally, as a wonderful storyteller and intriguing character, would be the main focus. There'd be a great number of people out there who, if they closed their eyes, would be able to hear her pretty voice saying, "Did I ever tell you about that time when?" Or, "Oh my God, did we really do that?" One of my favorite stories features Sally getting out of bed one morning, somewhat worse for wear, to find the entire New Zealand men's water polo team sprawled across the floor in various states of consciousness. Despite the apparent chaos, the Westwood dresses, the Chanel handbags, and the ridiculous Louboutin heels, it's important to remember there was a genius at work. Having sailed through her under- and postgraduate degrees with top marks, her name began to be put forward for various scholarship opportunities. She'd been told, off record, she'd already been accepted for one such placement, so Sally approached her final interview for the prestigious Kennedy Scholarship with an unusually relaxed attitude. At this point in her life, she didn't really believe she was anything particularly out of the ordinary. She was living a wonderful and exciting life, enjoying each day and the adventures they would bring. So when she walked into her interview, looking like she was stopping off on her way out to a Michelin-starred restaurant, she really felt she had nothing to lose. I can only imagine what the Astronomer Royal must have thought, but of course, she was brilliant, charming, full of confidence, with the willingness to argue back and get her points across. She was clever, funny, and razor sharp. Suffice to say, Harvard was in the bag. America and Harvard provided Sally with so much. It connected her to family in New England, gave her the opportunity to meet and befriend other remarkable academics, both burgeoning and already established. And among her many connections, she was probably most proud to form a close relationship with Seamus Heaney, who took an immediate shine to this vivacious young woman who knew his heritage as well as she knew his poetry and could speak about his work with sagacity and clear insight. As time passed and she met more brilliant people, it it began to dawn on her that just maybe she was equally brilliant, and that perhaps the world of academia really was her true calling. Then, on the 7th of May 2005, Sally's mother passed away after a short and devastating illness. Having gone a few years without seeing her, Sally and I reconnected while she nursed her mother, along with her brother and grandmother. It was unbearably sad. We were daily, constant companions, and throughout those so sad days, I learned so much from her about life and love, and from the kind and tender way she took care of everybody around her. In the days and nights she was off duty, so to speak, she would take me to her favourite haunts, the places she had embraced as a Londoner in the know, the Academy Club in Soho, the Hunan in Pimlico. If not London, we were in St Albans, where she taught me the beauty of a long lunch with wine and a lavish meal out, again with wine. Despite the sadness, we seemed to spend a lot of time laughing. She was full of the most incredible stories, hysterical anecdotes, and an endless, wonderful, illuminating set of acquaintances. She was simply fantastic company, no matter what the circumstances. I was completely captivated by her, and without doubt loved her immediately, in a way I could never begin to express or portray. Sally delivered the most extraordinary eulogy for her mother to a packed church, organised a wake, which people still talk about to this very day, and then, job done, she left England and her monumental grief behind. By her own admission, she ran away, but who could blame her? She had the beginnings of a new life, an amazing life here in America, and she most certainly grabbed it with both hands, living her life for the next few years at 100 miles an hour, never stopping. There was nothing she didn't get involved in, though of her many highlights, one was being serenaded by a somewhat tipsy Teddy Kennedy in honor of her birthday. Teddy then proceeded to fill a large, open-top car with other Kennedy scholars, funnily enough, only female ones, who he took for lunch and a ride downtown to see the sights. Sally finished her time at Harvard and obtained her PhD. She had fun, made incredible friends and connections, which helped shape her life. Now, I did promise myself I wouldn't mention names today, as there'd be too many people to acknowledge. Having said that, I'd like to take a moment to thank Joyce, Dennis, and Brenda for the love and the family they provided for Sally when she was in Boston. Most people saw a beautiful young woman full of swagger and confidence, living a remarkable life as if in a dream. I know the three of those people saw how vulnerable she was after her mother died. So thank you very much for being the family she needed at a time that was so difficult for her. From Harvard, Sally took her first academic role at Wake Forest in North Carolina. Clearly she had found her calling. A couple of years later, she was very proud to find herself here at UH in Texas. The academic schedule suited her down to the ground. A chance to attend conferences, and therefore a chance to explore and research new people and places, a chance to see America. The long summers afforded her the chance to travel, so fearlessly she would pack a bag and go exploring. Japan, Korea, Thailand. She loved everything about Asian culture, was never happier than she'd had a day at the Jimjilbang to look forward to, going from hot sauna to ice bath, with makgeolli and good banchan in abundance. With time, she settled in Friendswood with her husband Eric and had 2 children, Elizabeth and Seamus, who I'm delighted to hear today. She was beyond proud of them and loved them both dearly. Sally was tenacious and indomitable. She got her first book published before the children started school, the acclaimed Grief and Meter, coming out in 2016 with the University of Virginia Press. Of course, it was a book on the subject of elegizing poets, again the topic of death and the process of loss at its very core. Brian Rogers came into Sally and the children's lives a few years later, and Sally's second book, Branches of Isolation, was published with Mad Hat Press. Sally entered her role as Associate Dean. She was so proud to be Associate Dean, so proud. While she loved teaching and engaging with her students, it would be fair to say she liked responsibility and decision-making even more. And she loved the title Associate Dean for Success. She was very much in awe of her colleagues. I know without doubt that in her final years, she was at her happiest, having finally found some peace and a chance to stop running. After many years, we finally made our lives together work and were happily married. Sally had a job that meant the world to her, wonderful friends and colleagues across the globe, and 2 children who are maturing into fine young adults with the world at their feet. To know how much Sally cared about her role, you only had to ask her about some of the remarkable students she tried to gain scholarships for. She would talk about their brilliance and all they could achieve and how much they deserved to get ahead in life. There would be a fire flash in her eyes and sometimes tears at their successes or their failings. So much did it mean to her. Sally flew back to England on the 20th of May 2025 to say farewell to her incredible world record-holding younger brother, Peter, who passed away a few days later. Sally was taken ill herself the day after she landed. She spent the next month in and out of hospital awaiting diagnosis, but despite the daily cognitive challenges she faced, she would still spend 8, 9, 10 hours at her laptop, painfully and painstakingly trying to get the final draft of her 3rd book, a study of the poetry of the AIDS pandemic, complete until a publisher. I can't begin to tell you what unbelievable grit and determination it took. Sometimes 10 minutes would pass and she would have managed no more than 3 or 4 words, but she wouldn't be helped and she would not be defeated. I'm glad to say the book is with the publisher and requires only minor edits following peer review. Not content with that, she turned her attention to applying for full professor. The same challenges presented themselves again. She did at least allow her most revered colleagues to assist, which I'll always be eternally grateful for. When Sally received confirmation that she'd been promoted to full professor, she was as proud and as joyful and as relieved as I've ever known her to be. Being Sally Connolly was very important to Sally. In order for her to be herself, she had to fight, and she had to work, and she had to succeed. She may not have had the time she deserved, but she certainly used it well, and by any metric, her life was a wonderful story of brilliance and of beauty and of success. Thank you.
Thank you to all of the speakers for contributing your words, your memories, and your readings for this gathering. I hope that the words, art, and memories shared will provide warmth and a smile or two amid the grief of Sally's untimely passing. As we seek to maintain Sally's memory and spirit moving forward, I would like to invite you all to look at your programs. On the bottom, you'll see both a website address and a QR code that you can scan directly on your phone to be taken to the unveiling of a memorial fund in Sally's memory. For those of us viewing online, where did I put that address? There we go. Giving, the address is giving.uh.edu/class/Sally. This memorial fund will contribute to both faculty and student success with a special interest in supporting UK-US scholarly and cultural bonds. Please consider contributing to this fund in her memory, and please consider passing on the link to others who might be so inclined. We would be honored to carry on her memory with this scholarship in perpetuity in order to continue supporting the high-quality, humanizing work that Sally so valued. Before we go, I have a couple things to present. The first is a proclamation from Harris County that we received today, signed by County Attorney Christian Menefee. And I'll go ahead and read that to you, and then I'm going to give it to her children. So this is a proclamation. It says, whereas Dr. Sally Connolly, an esteemed literary scholar and devoted educator, dedicated her life to the study of poetry, literature, and the transformative power of education. Born and educated in the United Kingdom, she studied English literature at University College London, later becoming a Kennedy Scholar at Harvard University before embarking on a distinguished career that bridged continents and disciplines. Whereas Dr. Sally Connolly's groundbreaking scholarship shaped the field of transatlantic poetry. Her influential works, Grief and Meter, Elegies for Poets After Auden, and Ranches of Isolation, Transatlantic Poetry, illuminated the intersections of art, grief, and culture. She was completing a monograph on poetry and the AIDS epidemic, further demonstrating her commitment to amplifying overlooked voices in literature. Whereas in 2008, Dr. Sally Connolly joined the University of Houston's Department of English, rising to the rank of associate professor in 2016. In 2020, she was appointed Associate Dean for Faculty and Student Success in the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences, where she championed students and faculty alike, creating pathways to fellowships, internships, scholarships, and professional advancement. And whereas through her visionary leadership, Dr. Sally Connolly launched transformative initiatives, including the class internship program, the Be Seen webinar series, Class Discovery Week, and Class Honors, all designed to expand opportunity and strengthen the academic community. Her advocacy helped UH students compete for and win Rhodes, Marshall, Truman, and Gates Cambridge scholarships, leaving a lasting legacy of excellence and empowerment. Therefore, I, Harris County Attorney Christian D. Menefee, honor the life, scholarship, and service of Dr. Sally Connolly, whose intellectual brilliance, compassion, and unwavering belief in the potential of her students will continue to inspire generations throughout Harris County and beyond. Signed this 24th day of October, 2025. Finally, to Elizabeth, Seamus, and Roland, thank you for your presence today. I have some gifts to offer you. They're certainly not enough for a moment like this, but we hope that they will provide you with warmth moving forward. I want to give an enthusiastic thank you to our staff in the English department, the college, and the university for making this event possible and beautiful. And to all of you, thank you for making the time to be here with us, both in person and online. For those of you online, this will end our broadcast. And for those of you joining in person, I'd like to invite you to the atrium right outside this chapel and up the stairs to continue sharing our memories and our loss in solidarity. Thank you so much for being here.